Hello and welcome back to Factorio Tightening the Belt Megabase Guide. I'm Xterminator and thank you for being here again. So I have crafted some pipes and underground pipes. I've actually set up some little assemblers to do it right here. We actually already have one here that I managed to be oblivious to and miss. But there are a few little things I'd like to go over. So before we do the oil, first off, someone mentioned, not last episode, but the episode before that, about they questioned my lab setup because there is another way you can do this, which seems pretty popular now, and I don't really have anything against it specifically. I personally prefer to avoid it because later on it does kind of break down and have some issues once you get really, really big. But you are actually able to pass packs through labs. So if this lab was grabbing packs, let's just say, for example, right, if there was a belt of packs right here, science packs, you are actually able to grab and pass through a lab to the next one. Right, now once you get a lot of different packs going, you do have to be careful and start probably using filter inserters, because otherwise like some are going to get stuck, or they're going to be just kind of going around in a weird loop, or some will be missing. But this is an option, and it does work. It works totally fine up until a certain point. So that's why I just kind of avoid it, because then I don't have to change my lab setup. I mean, we'll have to change it eventually anyway. It's more just a personal preference thing. There's absolutely nothing wrong with doing it that way. But in case you didn't know, you can in fact pass your packs through your labs rather than doing a belt-based thing like this. And then also there were some comments about maybe putting some like copper on the gear belt here, sharing it, which is entirely an option. Although, actually looking at this, I'm a bit worried for the iron. Why is this? We should check on this really quick. Why this belt? Because this belt is dedicated here, so I'm wondering why we're having these gaps. It looks like it may be short on ore. That's not good, actually. We're short on ore, and we've pretty much entirely tapped this patch. So after we set up the oil, we will definitely want to go get this train thing all set up and start bringing in ore, because this patch up here is pretty much fully tapped and saturated. But let's work on the oil. One last thing before we build the oil is, somebody did last episode say I should probably go a little bit more in depth on the pipe contamination. So just to kind of reiterate and more explain what I meant last episode in regards to the pipe contamination. So pipes can get contaminated when you get like two different liquids into a pipe, right? Like if you connect pipes by accident like this, then they will contaminate and mix together. And this is really bad because, you know, if you have something that is taking heavy oil, say lubricant or, you know, solid fuel from heavy oil, for example, and it has any bit of light oil in it, it just won't work, right? It'll just break it. And it's not easy to get that light oil out. You pretty much have to tear up the entire thing, the entire pipe length that has it in it, sometimes even the actual chemical plant or whatever that's producing, because it may just not like having a little bit in it. So it's really, really important to avoid getting your pipes contaminated because it is a massive pain to get them uncontaminated, and it just causes a lot of issues and will just totally like halt your system. And mostly, like I said, it just happens when mixing pipes. So you do want to be careful because you know, the normal pipes, you can't have two normal pipes next to each other like this, because they just create a loop together. Now the advantage to underground pipes, why I like using these, one, because you can actually run through, you know, these gaps, but you can't actually have them parallel like this, and they won't intermingle, right? Unless you put a normal pipe, like two normal pipes, then you have a problem. But even if you do put one normal pipe there and just an underground here, they still won't contaminate, right? So it's just these above ground pipes that you can't put just directly next to each other like this without them mixing. And that's the reason for me spacing these, like I mentioned last episode, and the reason for putting these at different lengths. So I'm just finishing these connections all together, and then we're going to set up the rest of our oil. So let's go ahead and throw down some more power poles. And I like to just kind of stick them in the middle here. And this is why I do leave these gaps as well. It's a little excessive. You can see a little bit of overlap there, one tile, but it's really not that big of a deal. And like I said last episode, this is nice because we can just expand this out, like way out here. Now, with the chemical plants, we are going to pre-set up the chemical plants we'll need for cracking. We can't do the cracking yet, but I like to have them set up just for spacing. I find, I've mentioned this a lot, and I'm going to mention it a lot more. spacing is so important. Like, you know, you can always tear stuff down and rebuild it, and I'm going to probably be doing some of that, but it's a lot more effort than just spacing it out correctly the first time and then not having to move it. So with that in mind, we're going to kind of put these where we want them. Now, we could expand out either direction with this, honestly, but this is going to be for the light oil, right? Because we need 8 of these. Or sorry, 7 of these. There's 8 of these, right? Making sure I put down enough. There's 8 of these, and then we need 7 of these. So actually, first off, let's go ahead and do this heavy oil. Now, we can't actually crack yet, so what we are going to do is use a couple tanks. Now, I am not really an advocate of making huge tank farms. Some people will put down, and it may be an instinct as a new player, and I did do the same when I started the game, putting down these huge, massive farms of tanks to store all your stuff. And it's not bad, but it can cause some issues. Like if you create like a loop in your tanks and stuff, what will happen is some of it will like stay at the bottom in each tank, and you won't be able to get it out like without pumps and such. So then you're just like wasting all that. And it's not great for game performance. You know, most of the time you won't get to the scale where that matters at all. But personally, I prefer to just avoid doing more than 1 or 2 tanks per. Now, we could set this up like here or over here. However, this cracking will require water. So we will want to make sure we can get water in here. So I'm just going to set this guy up kind of over here. And actually, I want to make sure that this can expand. And this actually, see, this is what I'm talking about, right? This does not actually allow us to expand these refineries this direction at all, because I just put the thing right in the way. So we're going to actually put it like out here, right? And then this guy will just stick somewhere, you know, can go really anywhere we want. Water will be coming from here. So with that in mind, we could set it here. I never actually remember what side water goes on for the cracking. Once I see it, I'll be like, oh yeah, that's what side it goes on. But, you know, actually, you know, this can just placeholder just go here. That's not as important, but this. So we want to line this up so we can directly input. Now, I'm actually going to do something a little bit different, and I'm going to probably spin him around and then actually do it like this. Because what's going to happen is we'll have the light oil coming out here, right, out to here, an input, and the water will be on the other input, and then the petroleum can just straight out go in, right? So let's stick another tank. Let's stick a tank like here-ish, because that can just go straight in for now. And we will get cracking, you know, fairly soon. We could turn it into solid fuel as well while we wait. And we could put these right next to each other. It will make the water and stuff a bit difficult, because if, you know, whichever one of these is water, you know, we're going to have to do like, so if like this one on the left is water, you're going to run into this and then you can't input. So you'd have to actually come in from like out here for both of them, right? So I am actually going to space them out, one, just because I like doing it better this way. You know, it is possible, of course, to have them right next to each other and then both come in from the outside. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and there we go. There's that. That's set up. These tanks may move a little bit, but that's kind of the general idea. And these, you know, we can't set the assembly yet because we haven't unlocked it, but they're there, and now we know where we can put stuff and where we can't put stuff. So petroleum, all we can really do now is do some petroleum products. And I guess we will actually tank this as well. It would probably be advantageous. So let's throw this down here. I was going to put it here, but this doesn't really allow much expandability for the cracking. So let's go ahead and bring this guy out. And he'll just go right into here. You know, and again, we could expand the cracking this direction, so we could move this stuff. That's not that big of a deal. But this allows us to at least expand all the way out to here, so at least double this. Okay, so, and actually, well, rethinking this, I am rethinking this plan. This really does cause some issues. We could tear up the tank. Whatever, it's fine for now. We'll before we set the recipes, we may end up moving it. Okay, so what do we want to work on now? Well, we need plastic and we need sulfuric acid and sulfur. Blue science will only require plastic because that's what's needed in these red circuits. So we're going to work on that first. The batteries aren't as important. Those aren't needed till later, or if we want lasers or robots, which we haven't even done electric engines yet. So we're going to focus on the plastic for now. Plastic, luckily, is extremely simple. It is simply just petroleum gas and coal. Well, we have petroleum gas here once we turn this on and get oil to it. And then the coal may be an issue just because we don't have much coal. This could actually be a little bit of a problem, but we will get it here somehow. So we have the petroleum here. Let's go ahead and actually just go this way. Now, normally I do something kind of silly, which is not a good idea. So I'm going to show you this to show you how to not do it. Normally I do something like this. And this is not good because this allows pretty much zero expandability, right? Unless I just want to like stamp the same thing like over here, which gets kind of weird. And because then I can like combine all the belts and then, you know, it just gets really odd. And I could expand them out this way. Actually, that is entirely possible. But then you have to like bring more pipes for petroleum. So this is not a great way to do it usually. Putting them in a line makes it much easier. Doing something like this. And now these we can put right next to each other because they don't need two inputs, right? If you only need one input, you can just stick them right next to each other. And these actually should move up so that lines up. We're gonna do 4 for now. There is a plastic ratio to the rest of this, but I usually don't pay much attention to it because it's going to be changing quite a bit as we start throwing in batteries and stuff. So I'm going to just start with 4 is going to be like overkill because these take 1 second and we get 2 per. So, you know, this is going to be giving us like 8 a second and consuming more petroleum than we're going to be making. But we'll have it at this amount for now. And we can just drag a pipe along here. I'm going to underground this because even though it's a small space, I can run through it, which is important. Now, this is, you know, can cause some issues because we're going to have to somehow input coal and output plastic. And the same principle is going to apply as I showed before. We want to use long-handed inserters on the lowest throughput thing, which in this case is going to be coal because we're inputting 1 coal, but we're actually outputting 2 plastic, right? So we can use these fast inserters to output the plastic. Now, in a line like this, and I know it's probably bugging people, it's actually bugging me that these don't line up, but they never will if we put them, unless we space them like this. The one problem with doing a line like this is always going to be on just one side of the belt, but that's easily fixable. So for like this, you know, it's not the cleanest thing. There's cleaner ways to do it, but just as a quick example, you could do something as simple as like combining just 2 lines together, pretty much exactly what we do for the smelting. If I didn't just drag over it. That is the one thing I don't like about the like drag over to replace is you can't accidentally do stuff like that. But there you go. So what's going to happen, and this is actually going to work perfectly because these are going to output on this outside, right? This outside lane. So this will be here on this close side. And then this will come in. And if we just pull one belt out, it'll fill both lanes, right? Because this is this bottom side and this is this bottom side. So this bottom side will actually become this top side, theoretically. I may actually be mistaken. No, I think it may... No, it will actually, I think, become both on the bottom side. But that's pretty easily fixable. We'll have to turn it on, which we will do here shortly. So let's go ahead and power him up. And then do that. Well, try to keep it clean here. There we go. And we won't power these on yet because they will... I think they do have a bit of a drain. It's hardly any, but it is some. And let's go ahead and get power walked over here. And I will take a medium power pole. Just because, you know, we don't... that way it's not going to take like 10 medium ones. We can just take a big power pole. And that's all now powered. And now we just need to get the oil. So we only have these 2 little oil wells now. However, we do have access to this set of oil and this set, which will probably require some tanker wagons to get in. For now, this is going to have to be doable. And it would have been advantageous for me to actually put a tank there to build up that oil this whole time. It was, you know, it couldn't pump because the pipes were full. So that was a mistake that I made that I shouldn't have. And we're actually going to turn this like here. And he's going to come along here. And again, we're going to go backwards just because I'm not that good necessarily of eyeballing. Actually, I mean, this case is really easy. So we will do this. Normally, though, I would go backwards from the destination to the source to line it up. But in this case, oh, see what I mean? I can't line it up. Some of you are probably a lot better at just eyeballing this than I am. So we're gonna pull that up. He's gonna come over here. At least we had not connected this first one. That's another good thing, is if you think you're gonna mess it up, don't connect it, because when you pull these pipes up, you lose all the oil in them. So luckily we had not connected that yet. We're gonna do this, and we are again going to underground because we know that this is gonna be the water. We could just do a whole straight pipe, and that would be fine, but then when we change it, we would need to pull up that pipe, and we would get some oil on our water input. So we're just gonna do this ahead of time, so it's all prepared. There we go, and these guys are ready to go. So they are cranking away. We're gonna get our first bit here. And there we go. This is actually not connected. It would help a lot if it were. But I am going to move this. And I'm also going to move this. We have 250. It's really not that big of a deal to get rid of it. We're gonna move this out because it would just be better. Because then it's not in the way of expanding this way. I mean, it's still in a little bit of an awkward spot, but it's a lot better than having it smack dab it in the way there. And then same with this guy. We're just gonna come over, line this up like that. And then the cracker for the heavy to light will just be somewhere over here. For now, just so I remember, we will put it like, you can just go anywhere. That again is gonna be kind of in the way, because the light from the cracking of the heavy is just going to go straight into the light cracking. So it's not like we need to reroute it back into the system. So it doesn't necessarily have to line up with these. In fact, if it does, it's going to be in the way. So this guy's filling up, and now we need to actually get coal over here. And this is going to be this is going to be a bit of a problem, simply because, like I said, we don't have much coal. We're probably going to have to pull off of our smelting coal, which we're gonna want to probably use a priority splitter, priority output thing again, just because, you know, we don't want to be sucking all the coal from our power or our smelter system. So let's go ahead and build another splitter, and we'll just, I guess, just split this off here. We're going to output priority to the right, which is this side, just so we make sure that that gets what we need. And let's go ahead and just, dang it, how about we use some medium power pools? And then that auto connects, which is really nice. All right, so let's drag you out. There we go. It's not going to be much, but it will be some. And we now have the plastic, which means we are ready to do red circuits if we so desire, which we actually don't really have any setup for because we need to do our green circuits. Now batteries, I will quickly show you batteries just so we can cover all the oil stuff in this episode, because anything else we want to endeavor in is going to be a bit much to actually finish in this episode. But the batteries I will show you in the sulfuric acid. So sulfur is going to be our first product we have to make, and this requires water and petroleum. And we then turn this sulfur into sulfuric acid up here, which also requires water and iron. So it gets a little bit tricky because you have to get iron up here, and then also for the batteries, you're going to need to get more iron and copper, and then they take the sulfuric acid. Now, what I like to do, just in case, unless I'm just like super lucky enough to have my oil products like right next to my smelting. I mean, in this case, they're close, but it's like on the entire opposite side of my output. Normally, I will just fill up an entire inventory or half an inventory of iron and copper, and then just dump it up here in boxes. And then by the time it runs out, I usually have robots set up or something, and I will just have the robots deliver it. I mean, you know, this gives us 50 sulfuric acid, and it only requires 1 iron. So, you know, if I'm dumping 500 iron in there, that is a ton of acid. You know, and these only take 20, so we can get 2.5 batteries out of 1 cycle of this, essentially. All right, so how do we do this? Well, there is a ratio. The perfect ratio for this is going to be 5 to 2. 5 sulfur machines to 2 sulfuric acid machines. However, that's pretty big. Because you can do 2.5 to 1, but you can't obviously place half of a chemical plant. That is the actual initial ratio. It's 2.5 to 1, but you can't place half of 1. So you either have to do 2 or 3, or go up to the actual perfect rounded ratio, which is going to be 5 to 2. But we're actually just going to start out. I mean, we are going to build pretty big. We could do this. It's going to take a lot more petroleum than we actually have, but I guess we'll do it anyway. So we're going to set this up. But the problem with 5 to do isn't really the size of it, it's the layout, because the layout gets really tricky. And we're going to see if we can do this on the fly. I'm going to warn you, I may end up just scrapping it and doing a bit of an off ratio, like 2 to 1. And you'll see why it becomes a bit of a problem. There are certainly setups that work, but I have not memorized one quite yet that I like. And I'm debating if this is actually going to fit. We don't want this here because this is going to block expandability. We'll just put it like down here. This will work because petroleum's right there anyways. So how do we want to do this? Well, 5 to 2. You can do it several ways. The first thing that comes to my mind is something along these lines. It's going to do this, right? And then you would have it one on top of each, or right? Because this one's going to share, and then this one is going to go to this one. This guy is going to go to this guy. So that's 3, and then you need 2 more, so you just give 1 to each. The one issue is that you can't really get inserters to evenly distribute. You may be able to with some circuit network stuff, which I haven't really messed with much. And this is actually working how I expected that I didn't want it to. So one thing we can do is we could sideload and do something like this, which would be called like a lane balancer, which will work, especially if we put like a piece of red belt here. So this will work temporarily until we get a better solution. I want to finish this first. So the problem is, right, is you can't have the inserters evenly distribute, really, you know, because like because it may decide that this one wants to take like 70% of it, and then this one's going to just grab some as it can, type of deal. Since they can't correspond with each other, again, maybe you can with the circuit network, and we're going to actually move these down a little bit because that was looking a bit scrunched. So that's the one problem, but it usually, in this particular case, it seems to work out pretty decently. So the problem we run into, though, with this, right, is if we put them above, we have some problems because we need to somehow get water in here, but then at the same time, we also need to somehow insert. And you know, I mean, you can put an inserter here if I had actually placed these properly. But then how do you get water, like, from these? I mean, you can get water in them, like this, but then how do you get water? Because normally I would like to cross them, right? Like how I go like boom, boom, boom with that. Well, I can't do that here. So there's a few options. We can just run water, you know, from some other direction. But this may actually be doable like this. Maybe I'm making this much harder than it needs to be. I think I'm making this much harder than it needs to be. Yeah, the last time I tried to build this, I was like panicked because it was in like a production challenge, and I was like trying to build it as quickly as I could. But now that I'm actually thinking about this can be a lot easier. So, and we're just gonna pull that like that, and then the petroleum can come in from the top, like that, and then the water is gonna go like that. So this actually works quite well. So here we go. Water, water, and then this one is gonna need some water, which could come in pretty much wherever. I mean, it could. Well, it can't come in here because we need to leave this gap open. So he may have to just kind of do something like that. It's going to create a little bit of a weird thing with the pipes, but there's going to be enough water pressure here. And these don't require like so much water that it will create an issue. So that should work. But then these guys also need some iron, which should be doable. We'll do it from the front. So this needs to output here and into him, right? And then we just need some petroleum. So he's gonna come over. Let's get a few more undergrounds. I thought I grabbed like 100 of these. I guess I didn't grab as much as I thought. Let's actually do it this way. Just because that's gonna get a little tricky with the mixing of the water and stuff. So you're gonna, see, so that's the problem. This actually needs to go one farther out, because see how that was about to connect with this underground pipe? That's what you don't want. That is what you do not want happening. So let's hook him up. And then this will need some iron, and then what we'll do is we'll grab the iron from here, for now, from boxes. We may belt this up, maybe, somehow, or we may just stick it in boxes. Well, let's just put some boxes here. And then, and I know I haven't been doing research, but there's really not much I want to do. We could get night vision. That would maybe help us later on, help you guys see. Power, let's throw some power down here, and this will pretty much be oil all set up. You know, like I said, we could make solid fuel. I mean, we could start powering our base off of solid fuel, actually, because we are running a bit low on coal, so that is definitely an option I will have to consider. I may have to think about that, or maybe we'll just go get this coal down here or something. So that's going to be iron in here, and then those output into there, and then this is just going to pipe into some battery guys. And the batteries, the ratio for this is one of these can actually support 12.5 battery factories. So this is going to support a lot. This can support 24 chemical plants making batteries, which is a ton. I mean, the batteries do take 5 seconds, you know, so they're not super fast. So we'll probably will need 24 of them. So this is capable of actually supplying a lot. Let's lastly get the water hooked up just so that is all ready for us here. We'll just drag this. And by the way, the pipes and underground belts work the same way poles do. So if I place this and then I just hold down left mouse button, it will auto connect them at their maximum connectable distance. And the underground belts work exactly the same, which is really, really nice. We're just gonna do that. This actually is not as much water as I thought. Can I wonder if I can put another pump in here. I don't think so. And you see these little green boxes? This shows you where a pump can go. Okay, so this is actually a problem because now we won't have water for this when we go to advanced. We may be able to share it. Like I said, this doesn't take a ton of water. Let's go ahead and let's get flight. This will start heading us in the direction of robots. And this is backed up because we're actually full on... why is this backed up? Nope, I forgot a pipe. There we go. And now he's actually backed up on this, which I also forgot a pipe. I forgot a lot of pipes right in there. All right, that should get things moving again. There we go. All right, gotta double check that. So this guy's all ready, and now we could just dump some iron in here, and this would go. We don't need batteries yet, so I'm not gonna turn it on because I want plastic instead. But we're gonna run this over, and our red circuits are probably gonna be somewhere over here. I am thinking due to the amount of cable we're going to need, we will want to actually have a copper smelter dedicated to that, as we've done here for these. So they're probably going to go down here somewhere. I want to leave room for a whole nother set of this below it. And then we also want gears to keep in mind, which may have to actually go above, because if we go too low, we're going to be hitting the outposts and be like way below our bus. So that's not going to work too great. But that's pretty much oil, and it's, I mean, once you get the hang of it, it's actually really pretty simple. For the longest time, oil was my least favorite thing to do in the game, and it was just so annoying. But you know, once I got the hang of it, it's really not that bad. It goes pretty darn fast once you get a build down that you like. Once you know the ratios, you can pretty much just blast through it pretty quick. So we have a ton of red belt here, and let's actually go dump some of this stone into our steel furnace production because we will want a lot of this. And we aren't really consuming much. We could do some military research because I did connect up the military packs, which I think I hadn't done last episode. So we have almost 150 of these, which is pretty good. Let's dump our stone in there, and he's going to take off. And how are we doing on time? We're at 28 minutes. This may be a good place to stop because we do need to, I need to do some off-camera work with, I probably need to move this like I mentioned last episode, since if we double the size for red belt, it's not actually going to fit here. And we will want, we will want another one of these over here, right, for this line of steel. But then we will want a whole nother set of that probably next to it as well. So we want to make sure we have room for that. And this stuff is starting to kind of get in the way, so we will have to tear this up and build a proper mall. I'm thinking we could actually do it right where these circuits are once we get our proper circuit build going, because we have iron and copper right here, and there's plenty of room. So once we get our proper circuit build going, we will just tear this up and then just make this whole thing a mall for inserters and assemblers and chemical plants, refineries, all that type of stuff, belt, just so we can run by and get it. So flight is done. Let's go ahead, let's knock out a military research. How about flamethrower? That could be nice, actually. Stupid trees will get burned down. Combat robotics are interesting, but how about laser turrets? Not that we have the power for that. Also, nuclear power is not as far away as I thought. It's 1,000 packs, but it's only blue, red, and green, and we're going to be doing blue here shortly. So next episode, probably what we're going to do next episode is I will hopefully have this thing mostly set up and moved over to where it needs to go. And then we can actually start working on some red circuits and then maybe blue science. So look forward to that for next episode. Red circuits, if we're lucky, if I get enough time to finish this out. And then if we have time after that, because the red circuits are actually fairly straightforward, then we can start figuring out what we're going to do for our science 3 build, which will also require engines. So we will need an engine build somewhere, which will probably have to be below this somewhere. But that'll do it for now, guys. As always, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed and did find this helpful. If you have any questions or any other thoughts, leave them down in the comments. The feedback and reception has been amazing with this, and I am doing my best to go through and read all the comments and respond to the ones that I can. And yeah, I'm really enjoying how this is going, and it seems like you guys are as well. But until next time, I look forward to seeing you all, and do take care.